Warning, this guide features Week 1 strats for P9S. While the information in this video should be accurate enough to get you a kill, more optimized strats are almost certain to be discovered in the following weeks if they haven't already. Make sure to check the description below for links to any newer, better strats. Hi guys, and welcome to a Hector lecture guide to P9S. This is Kokytos, Kokytos, whatever. For this fight, you're going to need clock spots. I recommend having tanks and healers on cardinals, DPS on intercardinals. You also need partner stack positions. I have my group defaulting to cardinals. And if we have to go to intercardinals for the mechanic, we stick to our color. Light parties are going to be used as well, so you're going to need stack positions for each of those. Before we begin, as you probably noticed from normal mode, the arena has an inner and an outer circle. These are going to be where the AoEs go up to for everything during the Mage Phase. However, it's really difficult to see the inner circle with the boss on top of it because it almost perfectly aligns with the boss's inner hitbox ring. Just be aware, that's what determines the in-out. The lines on the floor, not the boss. The fight starts with Gluttony's Augur, just a raid wide to mitigate and shield throw. Next up, the boss will cast Ravening. Every time you see this cast in this fight, it comes with a raid wide. The first Ravening is going to transition into Mage form. And our first mechanic in Mage form is going to be Duality of Death. This is a tank buster that targets the top two players in aggro for 2 hits each. The top player in aggro is targeted with fire, the second player in aggro is targeted with wind, and since each hit gives a vulnerability to its own status, you have to swap during the cast to make sure that each tank gets hit by one of each element. Just stand away from the group because these cleave, and provoke during the cast to make sure that you swap. I'd recommend having your main tank immediately provoke back so the boss stays facing north as much as possible. Now the boss is going to cast Dual Spell. They're going to do this 3 times in a row, but I want to show you all 4 different variations of Dual Spell. Dual Spell will always come with ice, meaning there's at least some element of an in or donut, and this one here has it with fire, which are big point-blank AoEs that target either all tanks healers or all DPS. To deal with fire, you're always going to stack with your partner. If the ice element flashes on the screen, this means that the ice donut AoE is going to shrink down to the inner ring, so every player needs to be in the inner ring. The fire AoEs are going to stay small, so stacked like this, you'll be perfectly fine. If instead you got ice fire, you stack with your partners immediately, but when the element flashes on your screen, this time it's fire, that means instead the ice AoE is going to be quite loose, it's going to be quite big, but on the other hand, the fire AoEs are enormous. Here you need to go out to the edge of the second ring. Max Melee works perfectly for this, and take your stacks out there. The other dual spells you can get now have a new element, Ice and Lightning. Lightning is just line AoEs that target every player, so we deal with this at clock spots. If the element flashes on your screen and it's ice, the line AoEs are going to be quite thin, so you stay inside the inner circle to dodge the donut. If instead you get Ice Lightning, and Lightning flashes on your screen, the Lightning AoEs are now huge, so you need to go out to the edge of the second circle. The order of this is always fixed. The first dual spell is always going to be an Ice Fire with a random element. Then the second one will be an Ice Lightning with a random element, followed by an Ice Fire again with the opposite of the first Ice Fire element you got. After all of those are done, the boss will cast Ravening again. This time some ice pillars are going to appear. They don't do anything, but you need to take note of are they on cardinals or intercardinals, because that's where we're going to position shortly. Again, mitigate for the Ravening raid wide as the boss transitions into its Martialist form. This is going to start off with an Ascendant Fist tank buster. This hits very hard, so mitigate it, and you also need to tank swap because it gives a physical vuln up, so autos will kill the main tank afterwards if you don't swap aggro. It does not cleave, so if you wanted to, you could have the tanks stacked on top of each other for this. Everyone else is positioned in line on their color with their partners. You need to be in line with the ice that there is because the boss is going to cast Archaic Rockbreaker. There's a big knockback, and the only way to not die to this is you need to get knocked into ice. After the knockback happens, either all tank healer or all DPS are going to get targeted with a partner stack hit, so you need to be in your groups of 2. When this is done, immediately move in a little bit for a really tricky mechanic. In addition to the cracks that are going to work very similar to normal mode, the boss is going to cast either front or rear combination. This is always going to come with either a donut or a point-blank AoE. Here we have the donut, so players need to get in, And because the boss is casting front combination, while you won't see this AoE, you need to know that shortly after the first explosions, the front of the boss is going to get cleaved. So players are looking to try to find a safe spot inside the boss's hitbox, and also on the backside of the boss. There will always be a spot in this location, so if you look there first, you can then, as the cracks come out, just look for which crack on the inside is not glowing and stack there. After the donut goes off, if it's donut first, everybody needs to get out afterwards, because after the front cleave, there's going to now be an out about the same time that the second set of explosions go off. Let me rewind this to show you what it would have looked like with rear combination and if it was the out first. The out in the end is random with rear front, so you just need to look at the AoE on the floor. This time, players need to know to not be behind the boss because of rear combination, so they're going to look in front of the boss and out for one of the long lines that isn't glowing. They say that it's in the 4 direction, so the whole group heads over that way. Because we had an out first, the group's going to try to look for a safe spot in for the second set of explosions. When all is said and done, the boss casts Archaic Demolish, which is just light party stacks. You don't need everybody alive for this, so just mitigate it intensely if you're missing anyone. This is followed by a Gluttony's Augur Raid-Wide, and another Ascendant Fist. Make sure to mitigate it and swap. The boss will now cast Ravening again. We get more ice walls, though these ones you don't have to pay attention to. The boss is going to transition into a brand new savage form, Chimera. This mixture of Martialist and Mage comes with the hardest mechanic in the entire fight. Fair warning, Levinstrike summoning and the following mechanic is the wall of this fight. If you can get past this mechanic, you are likely going to be able to clear fairly shortly afterwards, but this is the tough one. I am not going to be suggesting any particular strat for this in this video. I am just showing you roughly how the mechanic works so you can understand how other strats work. When the boss casts Levinstrike summoning, 4 lightning orbs appear. These will be in line with the ice walls. When boss casts Scrambled Succession, numbers appear. The orbs are going to be numbered 1, 3, 5, 7, and these numbers will either go clockwise or counterclockwise, and 4 players will be marked 2, 4, 6, 8. 4 players will also not have any number. Let's break this down, simplify it a lot. First off, this is just how the order of the numbers work. The boss will always jump to the first orb, kick it at a wall, it causes a point-blank AoE on the wall, and a tower spawns. The boss will then jump on player 2 for damage. The boss will then jump to orb 3, kick it, before jumping to player 4. The boss jumps to orb 5, kicks it, point-blank AoE tower, before jumping on player 6. Finally jumping to orb 7, kick it, AoE tower, jumping on player 8. Now, you've noticed probably there's a bunch of towers during this mechanic, and so far I've not shown anyone soaking them. Believe it or not, these same players that are getting jumped on are the ones that have to soak it. Because of debuffs that the non-numbered players get and the debuff timers that the numbered players get, there's a set solution to this. The towers need to be soaked in the order 6, 8, 2, 4. So let me show you what this looks like just with the numbered players. First, 2 needs to get away, and after the explosion, 6 needs to hop in the tower. Everybody's going to rotate counterclockwise, that's the order of the orbs, this pattern. 4 gets out, and 8 hops in the tower. 6 gets out, and 2 hops in the tower. 8 gets out, and 4 hops in the tower. Now, if this all seems fairly simple, it's because we're missing one last element to make this all not fun. It's the defamation markers. The non-numbered players are going to get these blue markers one at a time in a random order. That player needs to be opposite the tower that's about to get soaked because they have a massive point-blank defamation AoE that targets them. So let's look at how this could all look potentially. Again, there are a lot of different ways you could do this. This is not a particular strat. This is just a way to see how the mechanic can work. So here you can see that M1 got the first defamation marker. Since the first tower is happening in the south this time, they go opposite it. As player 2, number 2 gets jumped on, the defamation goes up. Another marker appears on the off tank this time, so they stay opposite the tower that's about to appear. And the defamation explodes while 4 is getting jumped on. R2 gets the defamation marker, they stay south. and H1's already pre-positioned because they know they're going to get the final defamation marker, so they're already over there waiting. This is a lot of thinking. It can be really confusing. Just trying to remember when you're supposed to get out and when you're supposed to get in the tower as a number can be really challenging, but with enough practice, I'm sure you'll be able to conquer it. At the very end of this, just for fun after a really hard mechanic, the boss casts 2 mines, which is just dual spell. It serves as a body check to make sure everybody's alive. Just like before, if you see thunder, go to your spread positions, and when the boss flashes the element, in this case, you get out. There's a Gluttony's Augur raid wide, and then the boss is going to cast Ravening again, this time transitioning into the Beast form. At the beginning of Beast form, the boss will cast Charybdis and drop down these persistent puddle AoEs either on all cardinals or on all intercardinals. Pay attention to where these drop, because later on in this phase, we're going to be aiming some cleaves, and we want to aim them at these puddles. So our cleaves are going to be aimed on cardinals this time. Next, the boss will cast Comet, and the comments drop wherever the puddles aren't. So puddles are on cardinals, these drop on intercardinals. Stack middle, mitigate. Now, there will always be 2 partially broken comets and 2 completely unbroken comets. The goal of everything we do next is to keep those perfect comets completely safe and avoid them. Early on, we're going to need 4 of our players to go out, and you need a system for where they're going to go out to. They just need to go out to one of the partially broken comets. It doesn't matter which one. You can YOLO this, or you can have a priority system like look north and then clockwise to find the first partially broken one. For this, I show the tanks and healers going out first. This is because the boss is casting Beastly Bile, which is a light party stack targeted on the furthest player, and we need 4 players out there on one of the broken comets. The DPS are staying in because they're going to get targeted with Kono Cleaves, and they get to just now spread to their usual partner stack spot. Beastly Bile gets stored, and the boss starts to cast Thunderbolt. These are the cleaves. They aim at the 4 nearest player to the boss. So as long as none of the tanks are nearer than any of the DPS, they can still keep their uptime here. Thunderbolt goes off, and players need to make sure they aim these at the puddles, not the comets. If you clip any of the comets with your Conal AoE, this is likely going to be a wipe. The first Beastly Bile comes down on the tank healers. That comet is going to explode shortly afterwards. And now we're going to repeat everything. The DPS are going to go stack on the other unbroken one, and tanks and healers are spreading to their partner stack spots. Thunderbolt gets cast again. And again, make sure you don't hit any of the comets with your cone. If you've done this correctly, the 2 partially broken ones at the beginning should disintegrate, but the other 2 comets should be totally fine. This is important because the boss will cast Ecliptic Meteor and target one of those 2 with a giant meteor. You need to have the other one still available to hide behind to line of sight from this other giant meteor coming down. Be aware that these perfect comets here don't always have to be 180 degrees across. They can sometimes be next to each other, and if they are, you're line of sighting the meteor, not the middle of the arena. Make sure you're out of sight of the meteor, and then run middle to dodge the exploding comet. All that's left in Beast Phase is a raid-wide Beastly Fury to heal and mitigate through. The boss is going to cast Ravening again, Ice Walls again to pay attention to, this time on intercardinals, and we get Chimera form again. The second Chimera Phase is going to start with a Duality of Death Tank Buster, deal with this exactly the same way as the first time, making sure to swap during the cast. Afterwards, you need to immediately hustle to get into your partner stack positions in line with the Ice Walls, so this time on intercardinals. The boss casts Archaic Rockbreaker. Everybody gets knocked back. You take the partner stack damage. And now this time, instead of being combined with a front combination or rear combination, the boss is going to do a dual spell, always a partner stack. Essentially, just dodge the cracks on the ground, but stay near to where you started because you're already near your dual spell spot. For the first set, the group just looks for the nearest safe spot near to where they started. The boss is now going to reveal if it's an in or an out, and you can try to do this immediately or just focus on dodging the cracks and deal with adjusting to your position afterwards. There is time. When all is said and done, there's a Gluttony's Augur raid wide, which gets rid of the ice. And then the last new mechanic, Chimeric Succession. Don't let the numbers scare you. This is much easier than the first Succession that we saw. For this one, your 1, 2, 3, and 4 mark player are just the order that they're going to have big defamations. Giant AoEs target them. They need to be away from the group, I have the 1 and the 3 go to the 1 marker on the turn, the 2 and the 4 marker go to the 2 marker. Everybody else is going south, and the main tank's pulling the boss a little bit north. The boss is going to cast Rear Fire Strikes. This is going to be a stack targeting the furthest player, and it does proximity-based damage. This is why we pulled the boss north, and it's why everybody, including the main tank that doesn't have a number, is going to go quite south. Don't go all the way to the wall. You're going to need a little bit of room for the final bit of this Fire Strikes thing, which we'll show in a second. About when the cast bar reaches the E in rear, that's when the first Defamation goes off, and 1 and 3 can swap. 2 goes off, 2 and 4 swap, and now Rear Fire Strikes goes off. The boss is going to jump onto the party for damage. Make sure to mitigate this as it hits hard. And now, Rear Fire Strikes means that in a second, the boss is going to cleave behind it. Before that, we have a very short amount of time where the boss will face towards the players it just jumped on. So if we move in, now, when the boss casts Swinging Kick, that Swinging Kick is going in the rear and therefore out to the edge of the arena. It goes off just about after the 4th Defamation. Let me show you the only thing that changes if it's front Fire Strikes. When the group gets jumped on, instead they take a step out towards the wall. Swinging Kick is now going to be baited out, and the group can dodge back towards middle to avoid getting hit by it. If you've survived all that, you're rewarded with a 2 Minds. It's just another dual spell. Do it in the exact same way that you've seen before, because it just serves as a body check. With that done, the boss will cast Ravening, more raid-wide damage and transition into Mage form, and from here, this is all old mechanics. Mage form is going to have a mixture of Duality of Death tank busters, dual spells of random elements, and Gluttony's Augur raid-wides to heal through. But it's nothing you haven't seen before. When the boss is finished with all of its mage mechanics to give you time to kill, it's going to cast Ravening one more time, turn into a Chimera, and then cast Disintegration. Kill before the cast finishes, or it's game over. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found this useful. Please send me your updated strats for Levinstrike. I know that there's going to be a lot of opinions on how is the best way to solve this. I've already seen the JP strat looks quite good, and I might make a short video on it if somebody else has not already made a better one on it. Anyways, I hope nothing in this video causes you grief in Party Finder. Good luck going for the kill. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.